Okay, that's 6 o'clock. So obviously we're still waiting for people to join. That's not a problem, but we do have quite a tight schedule tonight. We've got 3 hours to introduce you to the recent graduates from the Therapeutic Photography course at Robert Gordon University. My name's Neil Gibson. I'm the course leader for the course, the Postgraduate Certificate in Therapeutic Photography. I'm also the author of Therapeutic Photography. Might as well plug the book while I'm here. And it just gives me enormous pleasure to introduce this symposium tonight and introduce you to 10 really impressive students, graduates, and their work that they're going to showcase tonight. Just a little bit of practicality. We've got the webinar chat, so please keep using it to introduce yourself as you come on. Remember, you won't see yourself on camera. It's just the panelists you'll see on camera. We also have a question and answer box at the bottom of the screen as well. So whilst the presentations are on, please feel free to ask questions via the question and answer box, and the panelists will try to answer your questions as they come in. We'll also allocate a little bit of time after every 2 or 3 presentations where we'll have a bit more of a chat with the presenters as well. But we are obviously pushed for time. We've only got 3 hours and we want to pack as much as possible into this as we can. I'm also recording the session, so I will make the recording available on YouTube after the symposium, probably middle of next week. Just again, a little bit of practical stuff to cover in terms of ethics. The presentations you're going to see tonight are the intellectual properties of the presenters that you will see. They own the copyright for their work. So if you want to use anything you see, contact the presenters directly. If you want to use anything from this recording, contact me about the recording. But it's just to keep everyone safe and in terms of who owns what. So that's really it from me. I'm sure you'll hear a bit more from me as we go through this evening. But first off, I want to introduce probably the pioneer, the early pioneer of phototherapy techniques, Judy Weiser, who's founder and director of the Phototherapy Center in Vancouver, Canada. Judy is currently considered the world authority in these techniques. She's a psychologist, art therapist, university adjunct instructor, international lecturer, trainer, and consultant. And she manages the richly informational website Phototherapy and Therapeutic Photography, photo-based helping techniques for mental health professionals and others, as well as the Facebook group for the same topic, which now has over 10,000 individually approved members. And she'll soon be launching her comprehensive package of online courses as well. Judy also authored the classic book Phototherapy Techniques, exploring the secrets of personal snapshots and family albums, as well as dozens of professional articles and book chapters on these subjects, as well as given several hundred workshops, lectures, training intensives about these techniques worldwide during the past 40 years. So Judy, with that big introduction, over to you.
I want to thank you, Neil, for such an impressive explanation of who I am and why I was invited to speak with you today. I'm glad you took care of the shameless self-promotion bit, because the way I want to introduce myself today is much more personal. Very simply, I want to share with you my utter joy at how this event has made me realize that therapeutic photography has now reached adult status, is no longer in its earlier, still growing up stage. Wow, a full university academic course on therapeutic photography. Who would have imagined this step taking only 15 short years? Let me explain. The one thing that I asked Neil not to mention in his intro, because I wanted to say it myself proudly, spoiler alert, more shameless self-promotion coming, is that the reason you're using the phrase therapeutic photography is me. I don't usually make a big deal out of this, but I thought it was important for you to know the historical facts. I'm one of the earliest pioneers of phototherapy techniques. I published the first article in the world that used that phrase in print in 1975. And I had no idea at that time how this would change my life path. I later met 2 of the other early phototherapy pioneers, US psychologist David Krause and Canadian psychiatrist Joel Walker, at the very first International Phototherapy Conference in the United States in, wait for this, 1979. Each of them had also thought they were the first to invent this idea, because in those days, there was no internet, there were no computers, there was no Google, and people communicated by writing letters and using mimeographed mailouts. Luckily, we all got along, and we've remained very close friends, like a family ever since, rather than succumbing to arguing about who did what first that sinks so many other professional relationships. Over the next few decades, before there was anything you could use to learn what was happening elsewhere on Earth, somehow many more conferences happened, a journal was started, numerous professional publications, and 2 seminal books were published, all of them about how already trained mental health professionals could use photo-based helping techniques to improve how their therapy or counseling process could improve their clients' well-being. Over time, we happily realized that people were actually listening to us and reading us and learning from our original work and publications, teaching therapists how to use these techniques. But then some of these people were also adapting these techniques to help themselves and other people for use in situations where therapist wasn't needed. That was great, except they were incorrectly still calling their kind of technique adaptations phototherapy, which we were certain would quickly become confusing. So I had an idea how to fix this problem, but I needed to be sure that the other early pioneers would be in agreement with my plan to introduce a new addition to the framework of photo-based helping techniques that I wanted to announce in my invited keynote at the International Phototherapy Conference in Finland in 2008. We 3 arrived a day early so that we could have an enjoyable family reunion together before we had to become serious professionals for the conference. And so we had a nice dinner together where I said, I think it's time we make it clear that only trained mental health professionals can ethically use phototherapy techniques because of the emotional depths these can quickly take people into, but that it's fine for other people to adapt them as they wish, but this is no longer phototherapy. So I want to take that word phototherapy, reverse its 2 halves so that therapeutic photography becomes the proper name for the alternative way that photos can be used to help people help themselves or others when the skills of a therapist itself are not needed. So are you 2 okay with that? Because if they had said no, then I simply wouldn't have done it. Because we're a family, it's one of the basic beauties of our particular field. Throughout the world, there's so much sharing and so little competition about who did what first. So I gave my keynote, and at the very end, I have one more thing to say in conclusion. I spoke. First, I want to ask all the other, pardon me, I have one more thing to say in conclusion, but first I ask the other 2 early pioneers to come up here and join me here, please, because we have a very important announcement to make. And we put our arms on each other's shoulders as we face the audience. And I said, today, we are announcing a name for the other way of using photos to help people when therapists aren't needed. It's going to be called therapeutic photography. And yes, the room did applaud, especially those who've been wondering if they were in the right place at this conference. And so that's how the title, Therapeutic Photography, was born. And now, just 15 years later, look how this field has grown, branches and strong roots of its own, positioning itself within various theoretical perspectives and diverse projects and organizations, all of which are continuing to evolve. And now, with the birth of RGU's Therapeutic Photography Academic Credit Course and its graduates has reached full adulthood, and I'm sure will be continuing its valuable work into future decades long after I'm gone. Before closing, I want to add one more bit of shameless self-promotion, because this first item will help you learn where you can get additional information for free. You don't need to photograph it from the screen because Neil has just copied the links and will be sending to everyone registered for this conference. But what it says is a little paragraph and then how to reach the website, how to reach the Facebook group, how to find more about my book, and how to contact the online courses once they're ready, and how to subscribe to our news and events notification list, because otherwise in this modern technology, I can't email you without you asking me to. Mentioning the book. Whoops, there we go. This was published first in 1993 as a hardcover. It was published as a paperback in 1999 when I took over being the publisher. It has translations into Italian, Korean, Russian, and soon a contract signed to do simplified Chinese. And I'm desperately looking for publishers who would like to publish this kind of book in Greece and, excuse me, into Spanish, preferably a publisher in Mexico. Any of you who have these suggestions, please type them to Neil. So just chat with Dr. Gibson's, give him your questions. I'll answer you by email, assuming it's okay with you for him to give me your email. And now, finally, in closing, I want to give big praise to Neil Gibson and Robert Gordon University and all of you who are presenting today. I'm just so happy. So go ahead now, start sharing your information. I'm done with my intro. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy. That was brilliant. Yeah, that was a lovely, lovely introduction to this session. Please do feel free to stay around if you want to. I know you're very busy. Just to remind all, everybody who's attending, I am recording this session. The recording will be available on YouTube in the next few days. If you've just joined us, welcome. You won't be able to see yourself on camera. It's just the panelists you'll see on camera. So once again, Judy, thank you very much. And we'll get underway with the first of our presentations. So first up, we have Fi Tunnicliff. Now, Fi is a New Zealander who lives in central Victoria in Australia with over 15 years background in publishing and advertising. She obtained her mental health qualification when the pandemic hit and work hours were reduced. She wanted to do something more meaningful. And she's worked for the last approximately 2 years as a support coordinator for people who experience psychosocial disability. And while undertaking the RGU course, Fi was inspired to develop and launch her Minding Light venture, offering opportunities for individual and group coaching both in person and online. Minding Light is focused on building mindful photography skills and also weaves therapeutic photography concepts and tools into the practice. There is a website which Fi will share, and her self-published The Mindful Photography Field Book is something that she's very passionate about. And has explored these themes in her book. Fi also enjoys a good coffee, listening to the ravens call and being absorbed into small scenes of wonder through a lens. So again, another nice introduction for Fi. I'm going to play her video. And again, if you've got any questions during the video presentations, please use the question and answer box. We will try to answer your questions as quickly as we possibly can. We'll watch Fi's presentation, then we've got Alison's and Rebecca, and then we'll have a Q&A with the three presenters before we move on to the next presentations.
Hi and welcome. I'm Fi Tunnicliff. This is my presentation, Finding Light. I just wanted to give a huge thanks to Neil Gibson for putting together this symposium and also creating such a brilliant course. And thank you to all of the guest lecturers, and a huge shout out to my fellow students. It's just been really inspiring to work with you all. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this precious land on which I am on today, pay my respects to the elders past and present, and also I pay my respects to all Indigenous persons viewing this today. A little bit about me. I'm a Kiwi. I live in Australia. My background is advertising and publishing. When the pandemic hit, I wanted to do something a little bit more meaningful. I embarked on mental health studies. I've been working as a support coordinator for people with psychosocial disability. Since venturing on Neil's course, I'm exploring setting up my own venture, Minding Light, with a focus on mindful photography at the moment, such as mindful photography, guided walks, online coaching, and workshops. Shameless plug for my little book. And a brief introduction into therapeutic photography. So I think we can all agree that the very act of photography can be therapeutic. It's so accessible, and we can take it a bit further with therapeutic photography. There must be structure and clear outcomes. The outcomes can be around building self-esteem, self-efficacy, and resilience. And a participant who engages with the photography-based activities can use this as a means for deeper exploration and really as a catalyst for communication. It's not so much about the photography itself. We can explore theory, and this can be a foundation that can help strengthen our understanding of the dynamics of using therapeutic photography in practice. And again, the theory can offer the departure points for that deep exploration, pathways for self-expression, and more meaningful communication. It's about using different aspects or particular aspects of theory to shape into the tools that will help towards achieving those positive outcomes. I think the beauty of therapeutic photography is that the techniques and tools can actually be really quite simple, but the results can be quite profound, quite powerful. Just wanted to mainly focus on the work of Seija Eukaniemi. Seija is a Finnish academic and artist. She explores through the genre of family photographs, building on the work of Christopher Musello, who classifies family photographs into 4 categories: unity, document, interaction, and identity building. Eukaniemi defines family photographs as personal photographs usually kept in the home that are taken for ordinary private use. There's nothing ordinary about that particular photograph. I think that we can expand this to encompass just the photographs of everyday life. So the world around us, the people, the objects, just our everyday life and the things that we interact with in the man-made and the natural world. Eukaniemi also refers to everybody's favourite, Roland baths, and encourages using photographs that really resonate or have punctum. So Vast discussed that photographs have visual codes and cultural cues that aid sense making. He discussed the studium of a photograph being those elements that we understand and that draws us in. And then he described punctum as that visceral force. It's the thing that grabs our hearts and compels us and makes us stay with the photograph. And I think that is really ties in with that deep exploration that we can achieve through this technique. Just touching back on the 4 categories: identity building, interaction, unity, and document. A photograph can be seen through the perspectives of one or more of these categories and applied to the practice of therapeutic photography. So I just wanted to try and demonstrate this through some of my own photographs. The first photograph I didn't actually take. I feature in the photograph, but I did not take it. But I still wanted to use it because I think I can apply all 4 categories to go a little bit deeper. I'm the villain being shot by the cowboy, my neighbor. This photograph, through Yukonemi's work, can be viewed as having the elements of document. It shows a suburban street, small town New Zealand, 1970s. There's identity building, which is, we were kids using our imagination and creativity. We were really influenced by movies and TV shows. The unity, we were safe to play out in the street together. And the interaction, it was a simpler time. We made our own fun. I quickly wanted to digress also that I think the 4 categories can also be linked to the actual activity of the photography. So as kids, we just absolutely loved our Kodak Instamatic cameras, film photography. We documented our surrounds, we interacted and collaborated on projects, explored identity through creativity, and we found unity in both the pursuit and the much anticipated printed results. Oh boy, and we'd wait and we'd just treasure those photographs that we'd get back from the lab. A different time, even the flops. It was great fun. Photograph 2, pretty simple photograph, plastic jug, plastic cup, sterile kind of setting. It's actually in a hospital. I chose this photograph because I think it's a good example of how a pretty humble photograph of pretty humble everyday objects can be viewed as a catalyst for that deeper communication and exploration. And in this case, it was also about practicing mindful photography, shifting the focus, and anchoring myself. This time last year, I was in hospital after having pretty major surgery, and I really needed to find something to help calm my thoughts and anchor me. And the plastic jug and cup, I was drawn to the simple, the soft color, the simple, soothing shapes. Somehow I managed to get my wits about me to shift my focus onto those objects and make a photograph. I documented that moment in time, what was in front of me. And through that, there's an exploration of the purpose of those objects, which was really about unifying. Water unifies and connects us all. To make the photograph, I had to interact with both the low-tech devices, which is the cup, the jug, by using a high-tech device, an iPhone. Identity building, it made me, in that moment, I was really vulnerable, but there was also resilience. You know, I was able to shift my focus, anchor myself, calm my mind down just through making a simple photograph. My final photograph I wanted to explore. This photograph is a visual representation of my significant relationship. In one of the course lectures, Sissy Burns described how she experiences punctum as she makes the photographs. That was a real game changer for me. So I thought about studium and punctum in terms of viewing a photograph until that moment. And then I sort of realized it's about that I can use that when I'm making a photograph, and I'm learning how to use that when I'm looking through the viewfinder and that feeling I get, or letting it find me. This particular photograph, I am choosing to focus on the category of unity. I'm exploring my significant relationship, the bond that we create between us, that belonging, the sense of kinship, the camaraderie, and affinity. It's actually one of my favorite photographs that I've made since I've started exploring therapeutic and mindful photography. Just wanted to finish with this amazing quote from the amazing Judy Weiser. And that is about it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I really look forward to seeing everyone else's. And yeah, it's been an amazing experience so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Fi. That was excellent. Okay, we're going to go straight into our second presentation, and we've got Alison Beaumont, a settler from England, artist. Alison completed a BA Honours in photography at Staffordshire University before moving to Silex, Okanagan Territory in Lake Country, BC, Canada in 2008. Alison's art practice is focused on climate, utilising photography, video, sound, poetry, and installation to create immersive experiences. Alison completed the postgraduate certificate in therapeutic photography in the inaugural intake, and bringing this knowledge to photo-based programming in her community, including offerings for corporate and non-profit organisations, with an aim of using photography to inspire social change, particularly around about climate issues. Okay. Welcome if you've just joined us. Please use the question and answer box if you have any questions during the presentation, and we will do our best to answer as we progress.
It's hard to be water. Brenda Hillman. Think of me, river water, deep flowing, silver-backed, slipping through canyons, tumbling into pools of green, over rough-skinned rocks, between roots of trees. Think of me, when the sun rises and turns black ink into gold, and night falls and I hold a sky of stars. Think of me, as I shimmer in a meadow, a ribbon of light in a sea of grass. Think of me as I journey from glacier down mountainside and scarred slopes, into wells deep in the earth where I pool, warmed by fire. As I shapeshift from steam to ice, raindrop to snow crystal, spill into oceans and rise as mist above rainforests. Think of me through your veins, dripping into every crest and valley of your being, for whenever you think of me in whatever form, I am always the same river. Journal entry, August 13th, 2011. From Reclaiming the Wild Soul, How Earth's Landscapes Restore Us to Wholeness, by Mary Reynolds Thompson. When starting a reflective process, to ground and be present contributes to a deeper inward looking. This journal entry speaks to how, as we travel through life, we may experience many different outward experiences, but we will forever be that same pure river at the core. Through this reflective portfolio, I will examine the images that were taken as part of the SM024 class. This image is a non-selfie. I will be using the showed technique. This is a common practice with the use of photo voice to allow participants to examine the work that they have produced. Showed is an acronym for what do you see in the photograph, what is really happening here, how does this relate to our lives, why do these issues exist, and what can we do to help address these issues. The selfie, the S is for rocks, water, leaves, shadow reflections, reality and surreal imagery. H, a slowing down of looking, acknowledging the deep layers, a sense of contemplation. O, a recognition of recent events, how there are many layers to work through, to observe, acknowledge and work with. W, thinking through the theory lens, taken to the psychological niche, attachment theory, trauma and resilience, a recognition of past, present ponderings. D, building resilience, self-esteem, family and friend networks. When examining this image, a few theorists and theories came to mind, the first of which is Ziller and the psychological niche. Ziller writes, the psychological niche is developed through the interaction of the self, environment and behavior, a system with the self as the nucleus serving to control or regulate the relationship between the environment and behavior. I imagine myself in the psychological niche with my environment, theory of how I look at myself and my behavior in a symbiotic relationship, ever-changing or ever-connected. This led me to attachment theory and to think how attachment theory allows me to examine my past and also look for opportunities where I could see that my attachment style has changed over time. I identify as anxious avoidant working towards a secure attachment. This led me to articles that examine the possibility of earning a secure attachment, as well as neural indicators of attachment style and imagery. In How Can I Become More Secure, Dansby, Olaforte, Fife, Schleiden and Whiting note that earned security is where an adult later in life moves towards a secure attachment. Traditionally, this was thought not to be the case, and that attachment style was static throughout adulthood. Previously, scholars have spoken in two ways to activate positive change. One is having a flexible, less rigid cognitive model, and the second is having support figures. Through the research, they identified three major categories that contributed towards a positive attachment style. Firstly, the meta conditions for earning security being intentional and having surrogates. Secondarily, being able to redefine identity and worth, relinquishing a victim mentality. And finally, making intrapersonal changes by making peace with the past and taking small risks with trust. I identify with these three major categories and can see the growth that has happened throughout my adult life. Another significant move towards secure attachment was involvement with community and also others. Through this earned attachment, allowing to give back. Freely, Galaith, and Dobek found through their research that participants move towards secure attachment through the intensive reflective activities that the research entailed, indicating that introspection helps to move towards a secure attachment. Further research led me to articles that found a correlation to brain activity, attachment, and visual processing. In this paper by Kim, Kent, Cunnington, Gilbert, and Kirby, self-critical cognitions and attachment styles are examined, identifying neural markers and a link between the visual cortex and self-criticism. They found that brain activation in the left anterior insula and left amygdala is associated with compassion and self-criticism. The lingual gyrus, the visual cortex, brain region, was also shown to correlate to those with a greater secure attachment. For secure attached individuals, imagery played a key role, but for insecure, there was a less activation in the visual cortex. A reason for this could be to reduce the activation with visual imagery. This relates to the last article on expressive therapy. Clara's article also identifies that trauma memories are indicated by right brain activity, implying that being able to verbalize trauma may be more challenging. In Clara's experience, expressive therapies are more successful with clients as there is less reliance on left brain language processing. Through these creative processes, participants can access emotions from the past. They also note that self-generated images have the greatest power for change. Creating the non-selfie allowed me to reflect on my current self. Having just experienced a personal trauma, I sought deeper reflective processing and delving deeper into the past. Kaplan notes in their 5 factors for coping in crisis intervention that issues from the past can reawaken from the process. This led me to how I am discovering a change in attachment style. Also, the act of creating the image and writing reflectively with the ability to share with peers allowed me to reach these conclusions. Having the ability to represent myself in non-physical form allowed for that deeper, self-reflective processing. In comparison to a traditional selfie, I recognize that through the process of creativity and examining this image, and with the support of peers, I've built upon my own self-efficacy and self-esteem. The image acted as a unique snapshot of time, looking closely at this current version of myself. When looking at self-esteem as an outcome of therapeutic photography work, I have experienced this through the introspective nature of photography. In an article, Autophotography as Research Practice, Noland identifies work from Lorraine and Berger that these chosen self-representations guide us, but are also a slice of perception at one place in time. The research also found that participants could find representations of self in their environment. Having time and space allowed them to have deep thinking in this representation, contributing to a measurement of self-esteem. I too feel the non-selfie process has allowed for growth in self-esteem. I will end with a quote. "Flourishing is not a solo endeavor." Barbara Fredrickson, 2010. Positivity. We live in rapidly changing times. Our existence as humans on this planet is perilously in doubt. Yet we see in action individually and collectively. We all have a part to play in the future. Climatography uses therapeutic photography techniques as a vehicle to mobilize and encourage global citizens to enact change. It provides space to build community. Photography is an accessible way for participants to discover their creative voices, increasing capacity for climate action through empowerment. This is enacted through a series of photographic exercises and discussions that allow the complex issues of the climate crisis to surface. With safe places for discussion, this builds capacity for widening conversations with our networks and communities. The ability to express our unique voices, we build capacity and confidence to take action. While economic and political changes are needed, citizen action will create the biggest impact. To make this work available to those most affected, work with nonprofits will be funded by corporate team building photographic programs. This should create a sustainable platform to provide workshops for nonprofits. We can all move from inaction to action, and climatography can help.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Alison. And now on to the third presentation before we stop for a question and answer session. We're going to hear from Rebecca Rowan, founder of Mindful Photography UK, a community interest company based in North Yorkshire, providing therapeutic photography sessions to groups and individuals. Rebecca's been linking photography with well-being in photography since 2009 and started at York Mind, and then went on to deliver to other mental health charities, hospital wards, community groups, families, carers, children, learners with learning disabilities, people who have engaged in the criminal justice system, and survivors of domestic abuse. Rebecca's approach is very much education-based and underpinned by the principles of therapeutic photography and the 5 ways to well-being, embedding learning, social connection, physically active participation, giving to others, and paying attention to the present moment. So without further ado, I shall play her video. Again, please feel free to use the question and answer box to ask any questions as we progress through the presentations.
Hello, I am Rebecca, founder of Mindful Photography UK, a community interest company based in North Yorkshire, providing therapeutic photography sessions to groups and individuals who would like to link photography and well-being. I began at York Mind in 2009 and then went on to share my method with other audiences face-to-face, and since the pandemic also online. My approach is very much education-based and underpinned by the principles of therapeutic photography and the 5 ways to well-being, embedding learning, building social connection, being physically active, giving to others, and paying attention to the present moment. Today I've been invited to share my experience of studying at Robert Gordon University. During lockdown, I attended the Griffo online seminar and was lucky enough to link with Dr. Neil Gibson, who offered an introductory course followed by a 1-year postgraduate qualification in therapeutic photography. Today, I would like to illustrate how these courses helped me to better understand and report upon the outcomes that I observed during the sessions I was facilitating. The main outcomes of therapeutic photography, which we'll hear repeatedly today, is the enhancement of self-esteem, empowerment, and self-efficacy. But what does this really look like? I also love to share the softer outcomes I see regularly in participants: the increase in exercise, the increased focus and motivation, confidence in numeracy, writing, and IT literacy, and most noticeably, an overall calmness. When delivering, I generally work with partnerships and organisations, and upon entering a project, I use a bespoke resilience-based questionnaire. Throughout the project, I support the participant on their journey. Photographic ability is incidental to the project. Just by slowing down, taking notice and sharing, I see dramatic changes in their ability and willingness to critique images. I also see subtle changes in the way they present themselves overall. Clients become more selective in which image they share and adopt a healthy critique of each other's work. Working with partners, I respect their predetermined group guidelines and policies in relation to safeguarding and group facilitation, but find that through the creation of safe space, clients set their own boundaries and limits. The creation of the safe space is paramount for both the facilitator and the participants. There is a focus on flexibility and understanding of the personal circumstances that brought the person to the group in the first place. I largely work with people who are experiencing mental health difficulty, who are, like myself, survivors of domestic abuse or have engaged in the criminal justice system, but these issues are rarely discussed. The focus is on the individual and their personal well-being journey through education and lived experience. It is important to manage group expectation, This is achieved through selective partnership working, clear communication, and an effective referral system. There should be no barriers to accessing an intervention such as this. At Mindful Photography UK, we place an emphasis on clear, realistic goal setting and achievable outcomes. Last September, 6 participants started a 6-week course in mindful photography at York Mind. We worked through the resilience questionnaires together and co-created group and individual goals, largely around slowing down, taking time out to relax, and working confidently within a group setting. The course at Robert Gordon covered group dynamics in some detail, and I could see this reflected in my face-to-face work. For example, in week 1 to 2, I identify that I have to take the lead to some degree to show the group it is a safe space. I give a little detail about myself to build trust, and also subtly embed some photographic technique. By week 2 to 3, the group are finding their common ground, their shared experience or propinquity. Relationships and friendships start to form, and I allow some flexibility in the sessions as people chat and find out a little bit more about each other. This is largely achieved through exchanging and commenting upon their images. I notice that people find the studium, those elements within the photo they might like, or the punctum, the resonance in the images which are being shared. At the end of the 6-week course at York Mind, all the participants requested that they continue for another 6 weeks. Attendance was consistent and there was a sense of pride and group ownership. They felt empowered to make new decisions and made statements alongside their images with conviction. We reviewed our objectives and goal setting. The individuals decided to set new, more focused and personalised objectives, which were drastically different. The group decided they were going to deliver subsections of the course to each other. Beth led a session for the group on textures, but not just this. Upon attending another Mindful Photography UK session at an alternative venue, she delivered this session twice to complete strangers. These steps illustrated that can-do attitude or self-efficacy. I noticed how they had stretched themselves, stepped out their comfort zones, and set their goals drastically higher, but all achievable. All members reported at the end that they couldn't believe that they had achieved and recognised significant changes in themselves. They said they felt safe. A safe group dynamic is not something that can be imposed. It's born out of that co-creation. It's not something that can be rushed or manipulated. It's totally organic. My final images are from Annabelle. She attended a course in September 2022. She was unsure what career path she would like to take and was trying her best to rebuild her life after 10 years of an abusive relationship. Our first project was to capture textures and patterns within the centre of York. She was nervous walking around herself, slightly unsure what images to take or how to interpret the brief. Annabelle engaged in the group tasks but was often tearful. She'd only recently left her marriage and was struggling to adjust to a new life. She had financial worries, and life as a single parent was overwhelming. She didn't know where to turn or who to ask for help. We met in the group over the next few weeks, and Annabelle started to build her confidence. She noted how the photography classes had made her see things a little differently. She was noticing things she hadn't seen before. She looked forward to her daily walks and would regularly post in the online sharing platform with considerable observation and thoughtful narrative. She completed a few workshops with myself, but said she still needed to do more. I invited her into the Mindful Photography Project, an online closed Facebook group which I initiated during lockdown. It's still running today and open to all. Participants can follow a monthly task and submit images if they wish, or simply enjoy the images and comments. Earlier this year, I facilitated another project, focusing more closely on therapeutic photography, exploring images such as the self, relationships, and the future. Here is Annabelle's response to the task surrounding fear. Fear. I feel that my life is locked. I have no control over what lies ahead as I don't have the key. In a sense, I am a prisoner, locked in, desperately trying to free myself. Annabelle found this beneficial, especially the checking in within the group setting and weekly measure of progress. This group was not focused on discussing the domestic abuse itself, but was set on focusing on Annabelle's life in the present, which gave her the opportunity to look at her life in real time, problem solve issues and process through photography. She started talking more openly. Her visual literacy increased so much that she was using photography to process almost on a daily basis. The sea is me. The the ebbs and flows of my emotions and tears that fall freely now. This image was taken in September 2022, entitled No Beginning or End. Annabelle goes from strength to strength. She has a journey ahead of her, but already tells me that photography has become a lifesaver. She feels less isolated, now part of something, and knows where to look for support. We met up in March, and she had reflected upon and amended the narrative from this original image. She now says, my journey is now a new beginning and starting to be hopeful of where it takes me. Here are some quotes from Annabelle. When I first started mindful photography, my head and my heart were in a very fuzzy, confused, raw state. My emotions were high and I cried endlessly, buckets, like a waterfall. During only the first session in a safe environment, I found I was able to focus on the task set by Rebecca. Feeling that my mindset changed as I looked through the camera lens and clicked away taking pictures. Then talking in the group about our chosen pictures together. The sessions progressed with me gaining enough confidence to go on short photographic walks with Rebecca and the group. The most profound difference the sessions had for me was that in such a short space of time, when I would go on my daily walks, I actually saw and felt my surroundings as I stopped to take pictures. That intensity of how mindful photography manages to instantly switch my mind from a deep, dark, insular, sad place to noticing the colours, smells, sounds and textures. Wherever I am in that moment is a pure tonic for me now. The course with Dr. Gibson and my experience learning with this generous and warm cohort at the university gave me so much reassurance to continue to develop my own methodology to reach more and more participants. This intervention is low cost, accessible, and it works. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Rebecca. So we're going to just pause for about 10 minutes and have an opportunity to chat with the presenters. Just before we do that, I just wanted to draw people's attention to a new website that myself and the graduates have been working on, and we'd like to invite everybody to participate in this. It's basically formed because we recognize that there was perhaps a need to have a community of practice website where we could all come together, explore ideas, ask questions in a safe space and learn from one another as therapeutic photography develops. So what we've got is a site called, it's a therapeutic photography site. It's on a platform called Ning, and what I'll do is I'll share the link with all the participants at the end of this symposium. You'll get an email inviting you to have a look at the website, and please feel free to join. As I say, it's a safe space for you to ask questions. You can set up forums and to ask specific questions. So I've already started on a couple here, looking at kind of exploring ethics, looking at icebreaker exercises, mindfulness. You can actually set up groups as well. So if you've got a particular area that you want to meet other people and explore how they're coping with developing certain areas, for example, therapeutic photography and coaching, or starting up and setting up, or indeed photography and therapy, because I recognize this isn't phototherapy, but there will be techniques that could be used in therapy settings as well. You'll also find all the video presentations from today in the video tab as well. So as I say, you will be invited to join, feel free. And the only way this is going to develop really is by people participating and joining in. So anyway, I'll flash that up again towards the end. But thank you very much, Rebecca, Alison, and Fi for your presentations. You've kept an eye on the questions. Have either of you seen anything that you want to pick up on in the questions that have been coming in at all?
Would you like me to answer the one about the resilience-based questionnaires? Sarah's asked, what resilience-based questionnaires do you use? So I work in partnership when I'm doing that work with York Mind. So they've already got their bespoke resilience questionnaire that they use. And then mine's very much based upon when they come in as a baseline, do they know where to find help? Where do they see themselves at the moment? They measure the physical and mental health themselves, so just doing an assessment, and then they measure their own social connection. So that we do this halfway through, and then we do it at the end of the 8-week course as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rebecca. I see Karen's asking about tips for starting out with small groups of young people. And Karen, hopefully, if you joined the NING group as well, I mean, that's something already set up, starting out and setting up. So it's this conversation we could perhaps have in there. But has anyone got any tips to help Karen just thinking about starting up with a small group of younger people? And feel free if you've, you know, for the other presenters, if you want to come in here.
I'll say something.
Sure.
To that. I work a lot with young children, and although I'm still somewhat of a novice applying the therapeutic photography method and elements, I think that you don't have to worry too much about whether or not it has to be done that drastically differently with younger children. I think, you know, the essence of the method translates really well with younger people as well with adults. So maybe just to soften any fears that you might have around that, I can offer that.
Yeah. I mean, I would come in and say, I think with any group, you've got to be clear about what the intended outcomes are. And I think just make that clear to the group you're working with, because it's not therapeutic by accident. There's obviously a purpose to what you're doing. So have a think about what it is that you're wanting to achieve with the groups, and just make it clear to the participants so that they're well informed when they come in to the groups. Sissy's asking a really interesting question, looking at maintaining the boundary between the activity being just therapeutic and when the participant might need to process difficult emotions. Has anyone got experiences of that they want to share? I mean, I guess, again, Rebecca?
Yeah, I wondered if that one was for me. Not sure if I answered this correctly, but I'm thinking about the scenario when I was working with Annabelle and the domestic abuse situation. That's, like I said, the images changed over time. So as Annabelle almost came in as the baseline of taking that photograph of where does this end? Where am I going with this? Through the process of doing the mindful photography, she was able to reframe, and then it had changed totally at the end. But that was through support of an external agency as well. So for a group like that, I'd only work in partnership with another organisation, like we have a local domestic abuse service. So that's is that answered the question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would certainly add to that as well, but saying, yeah, it's about knowing your role boundaries. Obviously, some of the graduates here have got qualifications in therapy and counselling, others don't. So it's about being aware of what you can offer, what supports might be needed, where you might need to refer on to, but be aware of the limits of your intervention as well, because, you know, we're not doing therapy. What it is it's a therapeutic space. A lot of peer support, but there are limits to that. And it's just about knowing when that needs to be followed up. You know, in my vast experience, I would say that it's very rare that I've had to refer somebody on. It's not unheard of, but lots of the time I find that the peer support really becomes quite powerful in the group settings and when people explore issues. The final question there, look at the advent of taking pictures on our phones and being able to edit them or taking a better shot. The reality of the moment we wanted to register in the first place can be lost. We edit the reality of the moment. Fi, have you got anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I think it's quite interesting, and it's made me think about, is it me, and I'm going to get this around the wrong way, about the I and the me. So that kind of, you know, the dichotomy between our internal drives and our impulses and our kind of raw self, and then our polished self. So yeah, and I do think that we edit ourselves a lot, especially when taking selfies and so on. But I just add as well, I think that the using our smartphones has just made photography that much more accessible as well, plus the sharing side of it. So yeah, I'd agree that we do edit. I think it's another layer to explore as well with therapeutic photography. So we might not actually, we might have an intention of something that we want to capture, but it might be that we actually end up exploring something quite different. So yeah, I think it's an interesting question. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. And again, I'm just chipping in as well. I often find that sometimes we do exercises in groups and there's not really an opportunity to edit the photograph. It's really, we're going out, we're collecting the photographs, we're coming back and we're exploring the photographs and talking about them. But some of the other exercises where you maybe set a task to be done within the space of the week and come back next time, yeah, you have to appreciate that it may well be edited. But again, it's about what the participant takes and what they say about that photograph that's really rich and important. So I've had people that have taken in photographs that they found online as well. So they haven't actually taken those photographs, but they found that they wanted to say something and express something through that image. So I don't have a huge problem with people editing it. I don't find it happens that often, but when it does, it's much more about what's said about the photograph.
I would just add to that as well, because in the video, the photograph that I shared for my non-selfie, that was edited. And I remember when I took that, I was like, well, is it cheating if I edit it? But I found that by layering up the image, I was able to add more meaning to it. So just to your point of being able to use that editing, but just in a way that then helped me to express that in a more meaningful way. So but I think, like you said, sometimes folks, when you're first starting out and working with them, they'll be like, oh, well, I just use this picture from the internet, you know, rather than actually taking a picture. So I think that there has to be a little bit of an element there of like, okay, well, is that really challenging you? Is that actually your own self-expression, or is that, you know, a search online? So
totally, yeah. We'll have one more answer. So Rebecca, you want to answer Wendy's question, and then we'll try and type answers to the others as we watch the next presentation. So Wendy's asking, how do you collect and view the images?
I tried to do it in the chat, but I couldn't. Well, I was just going to say what we already used. So we used Padlet, didn't we? And then Facebook groups, but not everybody's got access to Facebook. So Padlet's just a really nice one. And obviously it's closed and it's private and it just creates that safe space. Yeah, I would agree. I've used a variety of different web-based resources from Facebook, Instagram, Flickr, and Padlet is by far my favorite. There might be others out there, but it is private space. You can set it up and just give the link to the participants, and only they have access to that Padlet. And you can add text to it as well. So it's a nice space for collecting those images together and sharing those images. So